Good afternoon, everybody. This is Cliff London Uncensored, and I'll try to keep this relatively short today because this I could go on and on about the heroes and idiots of the world. But first thing I want to talk about, right to the point here, is that I think a lot of people out here protesting, and people my age, in their early 40s, have short memories because I keep hearing talk of these conversations that we have to have and these important life-changing conversations. And as far as I can tell, we've been having them nearly as long as I've been aware of things like this. In your early teens, they've been saying this stuff. Now, after all this time, has America changed? Absolutely. We are not. It is not the same place, and that's one thing that irritates me about a lot of these people that I'm hearing on TV and these fair weather activists, shitty ass Black Lives Matter. But anyway, is that they're carrying these narratives on, and it's a lot of things that you heard from the '60s, as far as institutionalized racism and things of that nature. And I do believe that there are some old systems that are still in place. But I also don't believe that America is this horrible place where a black person can't even walk down the street. Maybe some parts in the deep South, but I just want to point out some differences to everyone. Protest in the 50s and 60s would have included vicious attack dogs, water hoses, people being beat with absolute no disregard. Okay? I mean, you actually could have, they could have just mowed down a few, which they probably did and got away with it, claiming self-defense. I mean, now, fast forward to today, you have lines of well-to-do Whole Foods, white folk making lines, allowing people to loot while they stand in front of them. And it's called using their privilege to help, their privilege. As if, I don't know, I mean, they could get through them if they wanted to get to them, I guess. But the point is that the world, our country isn't the same as it was back then. There have been improvements, vast improvements. And I don't see why anybody is acting like that this is not the case. And to all those black folk out there talking about going back to the motherland and shit. Some of you I've known since high school. You're not going anywhere. Shut up. Just stop. Just stop. I'll see you at Jewel Osco. You know what I mean? Like, come on. You're not going back to Africa. You're full of shit. Anyway. People, we've come leaps and bounds in this country, and I'm just not going to sit here and pretend that we haven't. Of course our government has problems. Every government has problems because it's run by humans. But America's been the best that we've been able to do. That's why everybody is risking life and limb to come and live here. With all of our scars and all. And I think that people need to quit coddling these people. Even the peaceful ones, they serve as a distraction for the looters. They're going on and on this stuff's been going on all week now here in Chicago. All week. For a man who, before this, hey, like I said, his life is valuable. I'm not speaking on that. But had he just been someone who was beaten, had he not died? Oh! Before I go too far, here's how these the leftists spin narratives. I wanted to talk about how there was when they show those pictures of Derek Chauvin, how there is only they show him there's an Asian guy on one side and what appears to be a lighter skinned black man on the other side. So if anything, they should be lashing out against the state. The state killed George Floyd because that looked like a fucking rainbow coalition of cops to me. So how did this become a white-black issue? That white guilt. I mean, I tell you what, man. You know what? Actually, yeah, let's talk about fucking heroes, because I mean, they needed to drop a bunch of you guys back in the 60s and 50s, because I mean, that's another thing about how this country has come. You know, I turn on the news, even though I know that the mainstream media is probably going to be spinning a narrative, but when they show the droves and droves and droves of people walking down the street with Black Lives Matter sign, the majority of it's a lot of white folk. You have to acknowledge that. You have to acknowledge that. And as irritating as it may be because of obvious reasons, at the same time, I appreciate the sentiment, as misguided as it is. The point is that the world wasn't like that 40, 50 years ago. So progress has been made, and America is not this dark place. I think a lot of people are making money off this, like you see old crotchety ass, wrinkled up ass Al Sharpton come out of wherever the fuck he hides out at to make speeches. You think he didn't get paid for that? You think he didn't have expenses? His agent probably called up, offered, hey, you pay my expenses, I'll come talk. See, a lot of this stuff, if these people couldn't keep it going, because I'm not saying there is no racism, but I don't think that, it's nearly as prevalent as it was 40, 50 years ago. There are allies, there are people that do give a shit, some do it in their own way. There are people that, just didn't like the fact that the state did that to another person, but what we have nowadays is we got these ultra synthesizers, man. You could probably go up some of these white folk and smack them, and they'd be like, I'm sorry you went through so much, yes, hit me. I mean, you have people like that out there. So it's not the same as it was in the 50s and 60s, but I think these other black leaders and some white guys like Fred Flager here in Chicago, man, he's like the priest Michael Rappaport of sympathizers. But anyways, that you didn't have people that did this kind of stuff in the 50s and 60s. So our country has made significant progress on race relations. They even put Obama in office, which I'm not even gonna get started on that. That's a whole different video. But actually, no, it's past news. Shouldn't even be talking about it anymore. It's not even press. But I was gonna say that money. I'm gonna get back to money being made off this. See, Black Lives Matter doesn't cover the black on black, which is responsible for way more lives than any police could take. Talking in the thousands. That's just here in Chicago. Probably hundreds a month, actually. That's taking more black lives than anything else, but you don't hear Black Lives Matter talking about that shit, do you? Because there's no money in it. When they can get online, they can go on the news, and they get little t-shirts and shit. Oh, you got all these athletes. Matt Ryan, $500,000. Now Drew Brees has to apologize 3-4 times for what he said. Probably he's going to end up having to shell out some money. There's money being made here. It's a job for these people, because if racism is not as prevalent and you're an activist, if you're an activist and racism isn't prevalent and being an activist is your job, then you don't work. You don't eat. So if people aren't at conflict, a lot of these people don't have jobs. You see what I'm saying? And even still, in this country that's supposed to be so bad, you have white people that will just go, well, they've been oppressed for over 400 years. We can let them be full of shit. Just let them. And in some ways, that's even more condescending, as if, because it's kind of saying as if we need a constant handout, as if we constantly need to be coddled and we can't handle life in the world because of that we can't rise above what happened to our ancestors. Because actually we are victors of that. We survived that. And we are part of this country, and we are Americans. And it's irresponsible, and it's also halts progress when people support narratives that pretend that the country is the same place that it was in the 60s, in the 50s, and in the 60s. And even the 60s had flower power. It was like, hey, man, they were like, hey, man, free love. Age of Aquarius and all that shit like that, Non-alcoholic, of course. Also notice the media is not covering the destruction of black-owned businesses by blacks. They still, as of yet, I had to hear from an alternative news source about David Dorn. May he rest in peace. I haven't heard anything of funeral services for David Dorn. But Floyd's got three different outpourings. And I'm sure there were some former valedictorians or would-be all-star athletes or Rhodes Scholars that life was cut short for being, by some gangster, because blacks thinks that it's cool to have a no-snitch policy on people that hurt your community. But they will jump on top of one white cop in droves, but they won't stop shooting each other for a weekend. It makes no fucking sense, and I'm not, and I have to say it. You are all full of shit, and that's what really demeans. That's why these people are fair weather activists, and white folk. The fact that you don't mention that, you're scared to, you're afraid to be called a racist, But it's true. It's just really logic. I'm not saying other races don't do it. I know people are going to say they're really irritated. Oh, well, white people do it too. That's not the point. Every race does the shit, but not with the same veracity we do. So it's up to us to start making choices and stop waiting for white folk to save us. Save ourselves. Anyway, that's another video. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about today, then I'm going to go to work. By the way, if some of these people had jobs, which is why they need to cut down on this link and this wick and this shit. And I know there's been a pandemic and people been on lockdown, but the city's opening back up. You would figure some of these idiots have a job to go to instead of race baiting. Stirring shit up so they can have a job. Or stirring shit up so they don't have to get a real job. If people are donating and shit and you're getting some money and you're paying for yourself, now you're a fucking activist, go to work. Go to work. You're 20 years old. Go to work. You can't tell me shit about life. Go to work, kid. But I want to point out the immaturity of these politicians and why I think there needs to be more than these two parties. People goad you into voting, but you only get a choice of Democrat or Republican. There needs to be more voices out there, because I'm going to tell you all this stuff about Trump hiding in the bunker, and they're going back and forth the same way. We used to have a game in high school when you would crack on each other. You say your mama's so big. Her high school picture was an aerial photograph. You say something like that, and they go, and then somebody comes back with your mama. This is kind of like what they're doing with each other. Our politicians, the leaders of this country, are playing the your mama game. Oh, he hid in the bunker, blah, blah, blah. Oh, they did this. This is really crazy. And this is why none of these people we should be even considering actually. I know a lot of leftists like to throw out these names and say stuff like, well, I'd like to see, but really, these people that are left, Biden and all of them, this is a circus on all sides. I don't mean to offend anybody if you're really into Trump. I don't hate Trump personally. I think he's done a lot of very positive things. I'm just not in love with, and I'm all, and I'm not so overly my memory's not so short. He's been a lot better than the ones that people praise. Like George Bush was really awful, but by the time the man died, was in a wheelchair, everyone was talking about how cute and cuddly he was. Okay, whatever, fine, fair enough. But in time, they will probably do the same with Trump. He's I can't imagine how that job would be. People forget first thing he did was put Omarosa in the fucking White House. People forget that shit. She was woefully underqualified. But that's another video. Anyway, yeah. So, idiots of today. Basically all the politicians. Heroes of the day. I'm going to give an upset to the ultra leftists, because though your energy is misplaced, I have to appreciate the sentiment. It's kind of like that guy in jiu-jitsu who just refuses to tap out no matter what. So I have to give you guys a little bit of props today, because I'm in my early 40s and I had never seen some of the lunacy that and in a way bizarre ass love that you have shown. Even in its ridiculousness, I have to say. So I'll give you a hero of the day, which is very rare. But anyway, like a lot of other Americans, I have to go to work. And I'm going to end this with saying that, hey, America, we have made progress. We have been making conversations. And those of you out there that agree with me, don't let anybody tell you any different. And if you are a black person watching this, hey, the world's not out to kill you. You can't let these things, you can't go through life going, I don't have a chance, or everybody hates me, because it becomes part of your personality, and you'll end up acquiescing to fail before you try opportunities. And then that kind of leads to, well, I ain't got no other choice but to sell weed, or I ain't got no other choice. But honestly, trust me, you do have allies. You do. America is trying, though there's a lot of hits and misses. But you're not conquered. You're not defeated. You can win, and you can do it without doing anything fucked up. Not that it's a regular thing. I think that's more media stuff, We're not, most of us don't have criminal records. But anyway, yeah. So, in short, heroes of the day, weirdo leftists. Idiots of the day, politicians. My name is Cliff London, and this is Cliff London Uncensored. And remember, there is no fate but what we make for ourselves. Have a good day. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.